winery has a story. Mine happens to begin in Dallas. That's where I was born and raised. When I was 16 years old, I started working in fine dining restaurants. That's where I had my first true interaction with wine. Parents didn't really drink wine when I was a kid. It wasn't part of my dinner table. So being involved with the restaurants and having the interaction I had with the wine lists and the sommeliers, I realized pretty quickly that I had this interest in wine. So luckily for me, my manager saw that as well, the sommelier as well. So that I was interested. So he kind of took me under his wing and really exposed me to a bunch of wines that I would have otherwise never had access to. So I was tasting on a pretty normal basis, first growth Bordeaux's, Grand Cru Burgundies, important Italian wines, Napa Cold Cabs. So I had a pretty well-developed palate from a fairly young age. So anyways, that interest in wine really evolved into a passion for it. And when I was 21, I got my real estate license, did that, I'd say, for maybe 10 months or so. And one morning, my wife and I were having a little pillow talk, and she happened to mention, she goes, Jason, I know you think that real estate's your thing, but it's pretty obvious that it's not because you're really not very good at that. So you should probably figure out what you're passionate about and create a career in that field. So we kicked around a bunch of ideas, and she was like, well, how about wine? You've always loved wine. And that was literally that epiphany moment where the light bulb kind of went off, and I realized, oh my God, I want to become a winemaker. And so, it's a pretty lofty aspiration for a young kid from Texas who has no roots in the industry, no family out here in California to help. But either way, I'd say about 6 months after that very day, we had about a 3-week-long garage sale, sold everything that we owned, and moved to California to pursue the dream. And the idea was that I was going to go to UC Davis for their enology and viticulture program, which is like the best in the country. We ended up moving to Davis, lived there for 4 years, but after about 2 or 3 months of me living there and having a chance to talk with some of the students about the program and kind of see what was in store for me, I kind of came to the conclusion that I really didn't want to go to Davis. Like, it wasn't a good fit for me personally. Davis is awesome for what they do, obviously, but just my own learning style. I know I'm a very hands-on kind of person, and at the time, Davis was very much more like a theory-based school. It wasn't a whole lot of actual winemaking going on. That's probably changed a bit now, but anyway, back then that was the case. So, and I also realized too that before these schools ever existed, people learned how to make wine through the apprentice mentor relationships, right? So I figured, well, shoot, I've got an email address, a cell phone, a decent personality. There's really no reason why I couldn't have 20 mentors. So I did just that. I started going out and meeting a bunch of winemakers and befriending them and asking a lot of questions. And I was really diligent about my own self-study, even back in Texas. So everything kind of leads to this one experience for me. I was out on a wine tasting here in Napa. I overheard that this old gentleman in the corner owned a vineyard, and so I felt moved, and I kind of gathered my courage, went over and asked the guy if I could, I said, sir, I understand you're own a vineyard. I'm studying to be a winemaker. Do you think it'd be possible if I could come by your property? I'll be happy to hand pick any fruit you don't want. I'll pick it myself, take it to my apartment in Davis, and ferment it in my closet. I was like, I don't care how good or bad the fruit is. I just need to go through the process of making wine. He just kind of paused for a minute and looked he was like, well, I'll be damned, He goes, I'll tell you what, I bought this property for the house as an investment property. He goes, I have no idea what to do with this fruit. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to give you all the fruit. And he goes, you don't have to do it in your closet in Davis or whatever. He goes, I've got a 3-car garage. I'll buy you everything you need to make the wine, and we'll just split it 50-50 when we bottle it. So I was just like, are you serious? I mean, I couldn't even believe what I was hearing, because that just doesn't happen. This is, especially in Napa, So, but either way, ended up making wine in this guy's garage for a couple of years, and it was a perfect classroom for me. As I was making the wines, there was no one over my shoulder telling me what to do and when. I had to kind of connect those theory dots I'd given myself, from my self-study. I would basically put these emails together to all these different, winemaking mentors that I'd found. And the email was the same question to all the different guys, and it was so cool to see when the answers came back. No two answers were the same. And so I realized right then, I was like, man, if you ask 100 different people or winemakers, like, how do you make wine, you could easily get 200 different answers, because this is truly an art form that's supported by science. There's no one right way to do the things that we do. And that's actually how I came to name my first winery, Modus operandi, which is Latin for method of operation, or the way in which one does something. So for me, I figured I was taking the best little bits of knowledge from all these different winemaking mentors and kind of creating my own method of how I was going to make my wines. My winemaking career really started was with a mere 8 barrels of Cabernet. So in 2004, after 2 years of being in the garage, we started Modus. And, we did it from 2 vineyards, one in Rutherford, one in St. Helena, truly commercial vineyards, and also made it at a real winery, kind of getting out of the garage situation. So after 10 years of production, we've grown real slowly and real respectively, kind of a grassroots organic situation. Right now we're right around like 1,500 cases or so, most of which goes directly to our wine club. And we have distribution in some of the major markets across the country. So if you live like in New York or Texas or Florida or Hawaii, of course, basically places that I like to go. So it's fun to travel to, and it's a huge part of what I like to do as a winemaker, kind of showing who we are and the brands that we're creating, meeting with people directly in their houses and in their neck of the woods, doing dinners and things like that. Like that to me is just the most fun, because the environment is perfect. In a tasting situation, I never tell people what the wine tastes like. To me, the wine's in the glass. The only thing you really need to ask yourself is, do you like it or not? I mean, that to me is like the major decision, a taster needs to make. For me, as the presenter of the tasting, I'd really tell you stories about the wines, So when people come visit here in Napa, we tell stories, and we explain from the winemaker's mouth, like, why the wine tastes like how it tastes, not what it tastes like. So it's a bit of a different experience. And again, Modus is what I built my name on. This is my absolute passion project. This is the nerdiest of the nerdy stuff that I do. I don't feel like I'm in this box of safe wine production. So my mind is very open. I truly feel like I am an artist, and I don't go about my winemaking in a fashion that is, numbers based per se. I pay attention to the numbers, but for me it's about a feeling and how, the wine was coming off to me as it's being fermented. I put my hands inside the fermenting Cabernet to kind of feel the pockets of heat that the yeast create, and it's one of the things that sets Modus apart from some of my other brands. This is a dream come true every day. I love what I do for a living, and I look forward to making more friends as the years go on, and hopefully see you in Napa.